Right now, in a closed marine park on the French Riviera, two orcas are waiting. The crowds are gone, the trainers have left, the pools are covered in algae. And nobody, not the French government, not animal welfare groups, not marine biologists, can agree on where they should go next. This is the story of Willy and Keijo. And it's also the story of what happens when animal welfare laws meet reality. I'm Avni, and this is the Green Debrief, where we connect the dots behind the planet's biggest stories. To understand why two orcas are sitting in a marine park in 2026, we need to go back to 2021. For decades, marine parks in Europe had built their business around one thing. Dolphins leaping on cue, orcas performing tricks, it filled stadiums. And for a long time, very few questioned it. But by the 2010s, the conversation shifted. Scientists were publishing research on orca intelligence, social bonds, and the psychological impact of captivity. Documentaries like Blackfish had brought the debate into living rooms, and public opinion, especially in Europe, was turning. In November 2021, it passed a landmark animal welfare law banning the keeping and breeding of cetaceans. But France didn't shut the parks overnight. It gave them a 5-year transition period until December 2026 to phase out cetacean entertainment and figure out what would happen to the animals that were living there. On paper, it seemed a reasonable compromise. Reality was far from it. France's largest marine park was Marineland on the French Riviera. It was also home to the country's last two captive orcas, Willy and her 12-year-old son Keijo. When the law was passed, Marineland was already struggling. The park's core business model had an expiry date. In January 2025, Marineland closed. For visitors, that was the end of the story. The gates shut, the website went dark, and people moved on. But Willy and Keijo couldn't. They were still in their tanks, still being fed and cared for by a skeleton crew, still waiting while their government, marine biologists, animal welfare organizations, and foreign governments began what would become a months-long, increasingly complicated debate about where two orcas could go. Why aren't they just released into the ocean? It's a fair question. The problem is captivity changes an animal in ways that aren't easy to undo. Willy and Keijo were both born in captivity and have spent their entire life in it. Orcas aren't solitary animals. They learn how to hunt, communicate, and survive from their family groups over a lifetime, something Willy and Keijo never experienced. They have no pod, no social group, no survival skills that weren't given to them by humans. Releasing them into the ocean would almost certainly be a death sentence. So France was left with a much harder question. If you can't release them and you no longer want to keep them, where do two captive orcas go? And here's where it gets complicated. Because there's no established playbook for this, every solution created a new debate. And while the debate continued, Willy and Keijo kept swimming in the same tanks they've always known, waiting for humans to figure it out. Over the following months, 4 main options emerged. Each one looked promising. Each one ran into a wall. Option 1, Loro Park, Spain. Loro Park is a marine zoo with experience in housing orcas. An established facility, existing infrastructure, no long-haul journey across an ocean. But an independent expert review found that there wasn't enough space. Option 2, a marine zoo in Japan. Japan had facilities, France said no. The government's position was clear. Japan's animal welfare standards for captive cetaceans weren't strong enough. And beyond the welfare concerns, the journey itself, thousands of kilometers by air or sea, posed serious risks to animals who had never left southern France. So, option 3, the Canadian Sanctuary. Unlike a marine park, a seaside sanctuary in Nova Scotia, Canada, isn't about performance or entertainment. It's a large enclosed stretch of ocean where retired captive whales can live in a more natural environment. For animal welfare organizations, this was the dream. But there was one problem. The sanctuary didn't exist yet. It was still being built, and moving 2 orcas to a facility that wasn't ready wasn't a risk that France was willing to take. Option 4, remain at Marineland. Not a solution, not even really an option. But as the months dragged on and every alternative fell through, this became the default. Willy and Keijo stayed where they were, in a closed park in the same tanks. 4 options, 0 clean answers, and 2 orcas running out of time to wait. While the debate dragged on, life in Marineland carried on in a way that was hard to watch. Months passed, videos began surfacing, shot through the fences by people who lived nearby. Empty stands, algae creeping up the tank walls, 2 orcas circling the same water they always circled, but now without the structure of training sessions or the stimulation of shows. Without the human interaction they'd been conditioned to expect their entire lives. It wasn't a dramatic crisis. It was quieter than that, and somehow worse. For animals that naturally spend their lives in tight-knit family groups, traveling vast distances, and in near constant communication, captivity carries its own cost. Orcas are among the most socially complex animals on the planet. A closed, understaffed park where the routine had collapsed and the future is uncertain is a different kind of difficult. Animal welfare organizations raised concerns. The French government maintained that the orcas were receiving adequate care. Both things were probably true at the same time, but adequate isn't the same as good. And adequate wasn't what the law had promised. Cut to a year and a half later. In May 2026, the government announced that Willy and Keijo would be transferred to Loro Park in Spain, the same facility that had been ruled out earlier for lack of space. An expansion had since been approved and a new independent review cleared the transfer. Animal welfare groups that had championed the Canadian sanctuary, which still wasn't ready, called it a step backwards. Loro Park's supporters called it the most practical option available. The transfer was expected in June. June came and went. Nothing changed. At the time we're making this video, Willy and Keijo are still at Marineland. No confirmed transfer date, no clear timeline. Still waiting. France made history with this law, and that matters. But a law is only as good as what follows it. Sometimes the hardest part of conservation isn't deciding what should stop. It's deciding what should happen next. Because how we treat the most vulnerable, whether that's people, ecosystems, or 2 orcas in an empty park, says a lot about what our commitments actually mean. And perhaps that's the conversation we should be having. If this made you think, share it. And if you want to keep following Willy and Keijo's story, we'll link everything we know in the description below. See you in the next one.